Now, after what analysts refer to as a period of intense scrutiny, Nigeria's former Minister of Agriculture, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, has been sworn in for a second term in office as president of the African Development Bank AFDB Group. In his first tenure, Adesina set a number of goals in an attempt to spearhead the growth of Africa. Now, the High Five strategy includes Light Up and Power Africa, Feed Africa, Industrialize Africa, Integrate Africa, and improve the quality of life for the people of Africa.
Over the past 5 years, the bank has delivered impressive results on these high fives. 18 million people with access to electricity. 141 people had access to improved agricultural technologies for food security. 15 million people with access to finance from private investments. 101 million people with access to improved transport from infrastructure. And 60 million people with access to water and sanitation.
It's clearly convinced the stakeholders to elect him for a second tenure, the first ever AFDB president to be elected by 100% of votes. With such a resounding approval, what is the task before Adesina in the next 5 years? How can he justify the confidence reposed in him? Well, our guest is seated and ready to provide answers. Welcome to Nigeria Today. I'm Victor Azu. Now, joining me to speak further on the task ahead of AFDB President is Dr. Emeka Okengo, development economist. He is also a farmer. Nice to have you join us again.
Pleasure to be here. It's a privilege. Thank you very much.
Well, let me begin by asking, how would you assess Adesina's first tenure in a nutshell?
Well, I think it's work in progress. First, he went highly commended. He went highly prepared. He went highly energized, having done very well as Minister of Agriculture in Nigeria. I think the successes so far recorded were expected. They were not unexpected. In fact, if we hadn't remembering, that he equally did very well. Brought a lot of innovation into the agricultural sector of Nigeria. So it's not quite a surprise that he's turned out to have done as well so far as he's done.
Well, now, a fresh tenure for Akinwumi Adesina is what it is. Those who love him are celebrating. But what would you say, set him apart for a landmark presidency of the AFDB? I just told you earlier that he had 100% of votes, meaning that he was unopposed.
Again, the 100% vote shouldn't have probably because he was the only person, in the seat. He didn't run against anybody, so there's no way he wouldn't have had 100% votes, except
but they would have been opposed.
That's what I'm saying, except they were declined. So I think the celebration should be first that nobody wanted to run against him, or nobody, and this is a position that countries usually will feel people. So I think there's something unique about him, and I think it's Africa's time, and it might be his leadership style, it might be his output, but remembering that this 100% also didn't come so easy. He also had a lot of opposition.
Absolutely.
It's not as if he was a joyride. It's not as if it was a some gum chewing ceremony. He also went through some fire of sorts. There were a lot of opposition, if you remember, from very, very major stakeholders in the bank too. But I think along the line, it is a good thing that this has happened. It's a good thing he has another 5 years to be able to, probably now build on what I think are the foundations that he has established. I don't think he's gotten, the house built up, but I think he's laid a firm foundation. Because if you look at the figures that you read at the beginning of the interview, it pales against, the volumes, the millions, if he made the billions, that are dependent. I mean, 55 million against against 1.3 billion people living in Africa, that's not much. But I think it's the foundation to begin to now get it right. So to that extent, at the foundational level, I think he's laid it well. And going forward, I think in the next 5 years, I'm certain he's able to ramp up, most of the things that he's always preached he wanted to do from the 5 things you listed. Remembering that he's talking about lighting up Africa, remembering he's talking about integrating Africa, and all that. It's not going to be that easy, to do. You will require a lot of human capital, you require a lot of funding, you require a lot of midstream industries to be able to actually now do this on what they call a cash flow based, model. So saying it is one thing, being able to achieve it in the face of the new normal now, it might also present some kind of challenge, in the next 5 years for him as president of the African Development Bank.
But this is an electoral record we are talking about. Done with that, what should be his priorities in the next 5 years?
Food security for me. Food security. The moment you're able to achieve food sufficiency and food security, I think you've done all. That's the most immediate need now we need, because going forward, I think the greater challenge won't be how much money you have, but how much access you have, to food. Because, I see countries now, go more into developing their local content and local protection policy. So Africa just needs to up its game, in food production. The moment we are able to get food secure in Africa, every other thing can come. So for me, in the light of the post-COVID reality, which I don't think is going away as soon as everybody will want it to, I think we should be focusing on food security.
Well, now that you've talked about the COVID-19, indeed, his second tenure comes amid a global pandemic. Yeah. Now, how should his influence, or how should this influence his policies, at least for the next 1 year? Like you said, and we all know that it may not just be ready to go away. In line with your earlier thoughts that food security should be his goal, how should he work all of these out, considering that we're in a global pandemic?
Well, I think what we need to do is first and foremost look at the food policies of every country. That's very important. Okay, look at the food programs of every country, and then look at how the bank is able to develop the food chain. Okay, it is one thing for us, because in Africa, what we do is that we actually treat raw materials as finished goods. Okay, let's take, for instance, yam. A lot of people do not know that you can actually get medicinal grade starch from yam. I mean, that's one of the best sources of medicinal starch. Okay, you can get so much, from, but what do? We peel off the back, we put it inside the pot, we cut it out, and we bring it out and we eat it. Ditto even with rice. Okay, ditto with every other thing that we now see as our base product. So I think going forward, what Africa must do is that we must begin to, truly value process. It's just not a question of getting it ready for consumption. It's also getting it ready, okay, as a product. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Okay, you can. I'll give you a very typical example with the basmati rice. It's not grown in the sky. Okay, it is still a rice product that has been perfumed, and because it has that perfume and it's been broken, 5% split, stressed, tal, then it becomes some unique project that you're buying for about 10,000. Yes, well, not really a brand, a product. Okay, it becomes a different product from rice. Okay, that's why you no longer call it rice without putting the word basmati, because there's something now unique about that rice. So it's removed, and when you talk about even the long grain, cord split, 5% broken, and all that, this is where we begin to now articulate our proper volumes, as against values. So what I think going forward for Africa, and this is why I'm staying with food security, the most important of our needs now is to be able to, because nutrition is all. Okay, remembering that even the COVID that everybody, seems to, that has made everybody, he's become a common enemy. The best approach to even making certain that you're safe from COVID is your nutrition. Okay, the more nutritionally secure you are, the better chances you have of beating the disease.
But that's why I asked earlier, because it's a peculiar period, and that's why I'm asking, amid the pandemic,
yes,
how do you think, if you were to advise him, yes, how is he going to achieve food security for the whole of Africa?
First, let me tell you, you talk about China. What is the landmass of China? About 9 point something million hectares, if I'm correct. Europe is about 10 million, and then Africa is about 30 million. Okay, now how much of that are we applying to food production? Are you listening to me? So it's important that when we are juxtaposing the size of Africa and the population of Africa, how much of our land in Nigeria, for instance, what percentage of our 86 million hectares of land, okay, are we applying to agriculture? Okay, on what you might be able to call on a sustainable basis, vis-a-vis putting in the proper machinery, vis-a-vis putting in the proper manpower, vis-a-vis putting in, now taking, these people I've mentioned have taken agriculture from what we used to have 30, 40, 50 years ago, plantations, into belts. The wheat belt of America runs across over, 18 states of America, same belt running. So until we're able to look at Africa as that common whole too, and then begin to now link up our agricultural projects, agricultural products to now become interoperable. And first and foremost, have what you call your national whole, your national output, okay, for every product that is staple in our country. Then that way Africa can begin to run.
Basically, you are saying Africa should play to its own strengths by using what you have, which is landmass that we have to get what we need, which is food.
Well, I'm saying that Africa should do more than play to its strength. Africa should be able to play the way others are playing. Okay, everybody talks about farmers. You go to some other places, farmers, they're dressed like the way you're dressed. Some of them wear tuxedo to their farms. Okay, right? Some of them fly jets to their farms. Some of them wear suits to their farms, because everything is being mechanized. So it is not about the farmer now being the person who's carrying a hoe and then have a wife who has a baby at the back and carrying a basket of yam. Well, that's not the way for Africa to go. Okay, because remembering that what is important and what is critical is that you must be able to develop the volumes. Okay, first and foremost, I can be able to create, your value process, value first, and be able to now sustain your growing population. So the days of one man with a ban of 2,000 yams, he turns into what they call Ezeji, from the part of Nigeria I come from. Ezeji means king of yam, because he has maybe 1,000 or 2,000 tubers of yam in his ban. He takes a title. These days, people are having millions. People are even doing this thing vertically. There are vertical farms, and I'm not even talking about, the developed world. If you go to places like Indonesia, Malaysia, they are beginning to get, farms that go as high as 36 stories, up. Okay, these are now vertical farms that are now being mechanized. So when we are talking about food security and food production, I'm not basically talking about going with even tractors. Well, some people have gone even beyond, the tractorization.
It's mechanized farming now.
Yes.
Well, towards the end of his first tenure, you alluded to it earlier, really, the AFDB experienced an internal crisis with allegations of misappropriation leveled against Additional. Now, he may have won the war by winning the election the way he did. How can he win the peace so as to make good progress?
I'll reply you with a story, about a friend of mine who...
I hope it's a short one.
Yes, it's a very short one. He's a government person, and I spent some time with him, and I found out that in a 24-hour cycle, sometimes they sleep for only 2 or 3 days. That's why they say uneasy lies the head that wears the crown. Okay, there's no way you can be head of ADP and you won't have, in parentheses, enemies. Okay, some of them will come out of envy. Some of them will even come out of your success. Some of them will come out of, okay, they want to be your friends, and then they want to force you into a corner to be able to negotiate. So it is what every big man, let me use that word, okay, every man in that kind of sensitive position will go through. And that is what actually now creates his image, creates his personality. Because now he's come out of this, allegation or probe cleaner, okay, he's boosting his image. So sometimes as a public officer, those things are necessary to be able to also keep you, on the straight and narrow path. So anybody who is thinking that he's going to be Eureka after he's being cleared, no, that's not how public office works at that level. You're going to be making what they call corporate enemies, not because they hate you, but because you're competing with them. If he's trying to make Africa food dependent, he's going to be making other people, lose money, because there are people who are making money from Africa not being food dependent. So if he's going to be lighting up Africa as one of his major challenges, there are people who are going to be his enemies. Do you understand what I'm saying? Everything is listed as his 5 focal areas. Would have people challenging it because he's going to be shaking. If he succeeds in doing it, he's going to be shaking off some people. And then when you shake them off, you actually
shaking the table.
Yes, that's exactly the word.
All right. Let's take a breather here so we can get the input of everyday Nigerians. Nigeria Today will be back in a moment. Please stay.
We expect credibility. We expect him to work accordingly. This is Africa Development Bank, and this is one of the windows through which we show the world what we are. One would expect him to work with all sense of responsibility, knowing that the task in his hand is such a huge one.
So what I want and expecting from him is just to boost our agriculture, empower our youth.
He has done quite some things, and he's been trying to steer Africa and move Africa in the direction that it should move in order to refocus its economy in vital sectors. So I would wish that he will redouble his efforts.
I pray for him to bring down development strides to Nigeria, whereby he can assist Nigeria, since our economy is not in a healthy situation as at the moment, that we can come and help us so that we can have an infrastructure in this country, development, whereby the populace and the youth can be employed and have something doing.
Let him use his good office to develop Africa, African and Africans, especially Nigeria, where he comes from, especially in terms of agriculture.
Back to the drawing table, do much better than what he did in the first time.
Nigeria is his home state. He should be able to help us to access a lot of funds from ADB to finance our agricultural products to boost our agriculture in Nigeria.
All right, interesting viewpoints there. Thanks for joining us anyway, and if you've just tuned in, it's high time. We've been discussing with Dr. Emeka Okengo the task before Akinwumi Adesina as he begins a second tenure as AFDB president. Now, Dr. Okengo, you heard the views there, not so uninformed as you would think from the streets, would you?
No, it's not. I mean, everybody is like you and your father when you were in secondary school. Okay, when you were making your demands, you didn't think it through. Okay, and so I think they see him as a Nigerian, but they're not also seeing that he's no longer a Nigerian. He's just Nigerian by birth now. That by his oath of office and everything, he's become, a global citizen. He's not even an African anymore. Okay, because he now plays at the global scene. Okay, so for me, everybody's demand is fine. But you see, there are two things that he wants to achieve that we must look at a little bit more critically. When you talk about integrating Africa, you're talking about developing the right, legal protocols, don't forget. And it's not going to come cheap. You're talking about getting Africa to probably adopt, what you call in the mining sector, there's what they call the African mining vision, right? But even at the level that he gets that mining vision, is still what it is. You must be able to create those legal frameworks that can be able to now integrate the land of Africa to begin to now, generate these outputs that all of us, desire. That's not going to come cheap, because it will require constitutional reviews, it will require a lot of legal, rearrangements and realignment. So, and then you're talking about powering Africa. I mean, that's even huge. That's even, more huge, more taxing, because you see the demands of power. Okay, it's so integrated. Yes, the back end and the front end demands is not something you just put electric pole here, draw it down here. The financial demands, the output demands, the input demands, and then the cost of these demands. Okay, would also with what it is we're going through. So all those 5 areas that he wants to talk about, I think that number 5 might be the easiest part for him to go when you're talking about now integrating Africa into a common, unit, and then beginning to now build common laws that can begin to guide. And for me, each time I want to talk about agriculture, I rather talk about food production. Okay, because there is a world of difference between agriculture and food production. You don't need agriculture to produce food. What you need to produce food is technology. And this is where probably power, research...
For commercial purposes.
No, please, don't ever let anybody tell you the word pedestrian. The moment you're not doing commercial agriculture, you're not doing agriculture. That's very, very key, because the moment is not something that you can trade. Okay, then it's recreational. So anytime you talk about proper, I'm not for proper. Let's do it right. All you can do is to be able to aggregate these small farmers and turn them into a commercial farm. If you get 10,000 of them and each of them has a hectare of land, you're talking about 10,000 hectares of land, which can now be classified into a commercial farm. True? So what should be our drive is not to have, support local farmers, okay, with their seedlings to be able to grow on a 1 hectare or 2 hectares of land. No. What I think should be is, how do we now convert 20-30% of these 30 million hectares of land that's available to us, and then we're able to now make certain that we put commercial agriculture in it. And what is commercial agriculture? It is mechanization, nothing else.
But what about trade? Because while we do agriculture and you want food security, what about trade? What does the next 5 years hold for the African continental free trade area, for instance?
So why do you have a free trade area where you're going to be trading other people's commodities, when yours can't be able to qualify to go to the free trade area? So if you're talking about trade is even the reason why you must do commercial agriculture. Okay, these free trade zones that you've talked about now is the primary reason why anybody who tells you pedestrian agriculture, proper agriculture, say to the person, you don't like this country. Okay, and so until we get to that point, and remembering that we used to be, one of the biggest agricultural producing countries in the world globally, what were we doing different? We were tying research to plantations. You are close to my age, so you would have seen 1 or 2 of them. Nobody had rubber farms. What people had were rubber plantations. Nobody had palm. If you had it, it was fair and in between. You had palm plantations. In fact, the one in Eastern region, stretched all the way from Enugu into the present-day Cross River State, crisscrossing Enugu, Anambra, all the way to Akwa Ibom, and then Cross River. That was the Eastern palm product. So that can begin to give you, and it was just a plantation, it wasn't even a belt. So if we could do that in the East 60s, I don't know why anybody would be talking about, commercialization as a big thing. It is the only way, it's the only thing really.
So what about, collaborative schemes and partnerships? What should be the disposition of the AFDB towards such?
Well, remember that the AADB is not a government. The AADB is a bank, it's a development bank. Okay, so it doesn't decide for you. It is for you to bring your projects and your programs, and then you partner with them, and they provide the funding. And no bank, because these guys have they're not going to, it's not a charity bank. So they're going to be giving you funds based on, your capacity to be able to show clear returns on equity or clear returns on investment. Remember that is very, very key. Okay, so if we're not able to now show the volumes that can be able to attract this funding, we're not able to get the funds. He being a Nigerian, inconsequential. He might be able to bend to probably allow us, access to 1 or 2 grants that can be able to help us build. But you must build your feasibility to be able to attract, ADB funding, because it's not charity.
Now that you've talked about it, let's bring it down home.
Yes.
What should his tenure as president count for Nigeria? Should it count for something for Nigerians?
It shouldn't count for anything, because he's not there as a Nigerian, he's there as an African.
Absolutely.
I don't even have any advice for him in that. If we qualify, what Nigeria should do is knowing that, yes, we have somebody. And again, at that level of keeping an international job, he's no longer Nigerian, truly. Trust me. Okay, he's not going to be considering any proposal because he comes from Nigeria. Yes, there might be, I don't know how to put it, but I mean, from the standards I know of the African Development Bank,
of course, it shouldn't be seen to be so.
It's not even seen. He won't even do it. Okay, I mean, he's just president. There are other people who are going to be scrutinizing that paper before he comes to. And the moment he makes a call, I mean, part of why they were accusing him, he didn't steal money. Okay, he just they are accusing him of influence peddling. And it could just be, okay, do you understand what I'm saying? And then nepotism. So the man that accusing for nepotism is one Nigeria. Is he going to carry the money and then come and bring to Nigeria and you have not qualified for that money? No, I don't even think we should be going that way at all. He's no longer, he is Nigerian by birth, okay, but African. Right now he's a global citizen representing a bank that is not only owned by Africans. It's important you also know this. There are a lot of, investors, America, other countries of the world also have investments in that bank. So it's not even an African thing anymore. So anybody who is thinking that he's going to be bringing ADB funds into Nigeria because it's Nigerian, and hey, who is he going to be trained at? Give it to Ministry of Agriculture to share Nigerians?
Indeed, Akinwumi Adesina has become a global citizen and who is at the helm of the African Development Bank. We can only wish him from here the best in the next 5 years. Dr. Emeka Okengu, development economist and farmer, thank you for your time and perspectives.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Now, Nigeria Today returns tomorrow at 7:30 in the evening, but you can watch this and other editions of the program on www.youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. My name is Victor Azu. Thank you for your company.